Hola, bienvenidos. Welcome to Community Talk. My name is Connie Guerrero. Aquí estoy con Rudy Espinosa Murray and Hablando de Comunidad. Welcome to our show where we will be every week discussing local politics in the peninsula, hosting special guests like elected officials, subject matter experts, and local residents to discuss the issues that affect us. So, bienvenidos. Este programa siempre discutimos sobre un poquito la política local, lo que está pasando en la península de San Francisco, invitados especiales como funcionarios electos y expertos en materias y también residentes locales. Y gracias, Rudy, por estar aquí conmigo otra vez hablando de comunidad en Community Talk. Ahora tenemos a alguien muy especial, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo has estado? Y platícanos a quién tenemos.
Hola Connie, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, gracias.
No, qué bueno. Yo sé que el año pasado fue un año de locuras, ¿no? Y parece que este año se continuó un poco, que vemos los rasgos del 2020 arrastrándose en el 2021. Tal vez el año nuevo chino nos va a traer un año nuevo y diferente.
Esperemos algo bueno.
Sí, estoy con esa esperanza, ¿no? Tenemos a una invitada muy especial el día de hoy. Today we have a very, very special guest. Ella ahorita trabaja como concejal de la ciudad de Redwood City, mi ciudad de residencia, que felizmente vivo y orgullosamente vivo en Redwood City. Ella viene de la industria de tecnología, pasó varios años trabajando en una empresa como Facebook y tomó, siendo una mamá, ¿no? con hijos y mantiene su familia, haciendo ese trabajo, ¿no? Trabajando en la industria de tecnología y también ahora trabaja para la ciudad de Redwood City. So I just want to give a special welcome to our next guest. She spent some years working in the technology industry. I know spending some time at Facebook and then crossing over into public service. And now she serves as a council member and vice mayor of Redwood City. So with us, we have Giselle Hale. We're very, very happy to have you, and you look amazing. We were talking about this backstage, but we're so sorry. I don't need to be talking about your looks, but you actually look great. I'm going to point that out.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm part of the LGBT community, so let me just put that out there.
Welcome, Giselle.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Connie. You know, these days I'll take the compliments anywhere I can.
That is great. Well, we really, really do appreciate you being here. We do want to have a conversation a little bit, maybe just a little bit local about you, about Redwood City, maybe talk about the November elections and the outcome. This was a very unusual election, and 4 council seats and 4 candidates of color. So can you maybe talk to us a little bit about yourself and about locally the elections?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll start with the elections.
Sure.
It was a really interesting election. Obviously, the national election was a great deal of the focus. But here locally, this was our first round of district elections in Redwood City. And I think a lot of people were skeptical going in if they would create the desired outcomes and the intentions for which district elections were created, which was to give voice to minority populations. And I would say it's pretty tough to argue with the outcome. We are now a majority minority council. We have 2 Latinas. We have a Black man, we have an Asian American man, we have 1 person who is non-binary, and we have 1 openly gay man now serving on the Redwood City Council, which I think is huge in terms of representation and diversity. And we also have incredible thought diversity. We've only had 1 meeting so far, and if you attended that meeting, you would see this is a council that is already coming in and wanting to make their mark. So I'm still getting to know everyone who's new, certainly welcoming them in and doing everything I can to help them make that transition. I believe we still all serve all of Redwood City. It's very difficult to solve any problem on your own. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm really excited about the year ahead. It is going to be a challenging year. We are not through COVID yet. And we already had a number of crises we were tackling: housing, transportation, I mean, I could go on and on, homelessness. And so we're going to have to work together.
Yeah, there definitely are. Yeah, there definitely are some challenges that we have been facing and continue to face. Can you talk to us, Giselle, about you and your track to being the new vice mayor? A lot of us are very, very excited to have you, a young woman leader, progressive, right, sitting at the leadership of our city. And many of us are very excited that you're there. So tell us a little bit about your track and what your vision is for Redwood City.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I like to play it down, which I probably shouldn't do. But I mean, effectively, the way it works in these small cities is that by and large, both vice mayor and mayor is a rotational seat. So I like to say, hey, I was just next in line. Technically, the person who was next in line was Janet Borgens. She did not win her reelection. And so I was placed next in line. And it's interesting in a way. I've only served for 2 years. So it is very fast way to move up. It also means I'm only serving a partial term. So I'm actually serving the second half of Councilwoman or Vice Mayor Shelley Mazur's term. So I'm going to have 1 year, and then I'm going to jump into the mayorship, which is 2 years in Redwood City. So you know, I'm a fast learner, and as you can imagine, I'm jumping in. The difference with vice mayor is a couple of things. You know, one is you attend a meeting with the mayor and staff before each meeting to talk about the meeting, to make sure it's balanced, to make sure you've got the right set of agenda topics so that the meetings won't go too long. You're also really setting the agenda for the year. And so it is consequential in terms of what's going to get done and making sure the right priorities get addressed. And then there are a number of sort of ceremonial tasks that go along with it as well. And then you also sit on a number of additional committees. So I just got my committee load from the mayor, and it is very heavy. And fortunately, I did a lot in my first 2 years, so I feel prepared for that. I was also ready to hand certain things off. Really excited for my new colleagues, and I felt in my first years, I was given the opportunity to sink my teeth in, and that's what I want for my colleagues as well. That there's no waiting. You were equally elected. Let's get you to work, right? Let's get you to do what you came to do.
Yeah, 2 years is definitely a good amount of time to get your feet wet and then move on into more leadership positions.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Can you tell us some of the things that the city's doing? You know, the COVID is affecting our Latino community so hard, and you know, it's just something that is, you know, continues to, you know, hit our Latino community so hard, and our businesses. And it's, you know, so maybe talk to us a little bit about what the city's doing, you know, what can we do? Resources.
Yeah. I'm just pulling up. I actually had just sent an email on this. So, there's no question. And I think nobody, when we went into this, realized just how long it would be that we would be here. And so our support has definitely escalated and built throughout the year. I remember one of the first calls I was on when COVID hit was actually for the RV homelessness program. And at the time we were working on that project, one of the first things he said is, well, wait a minute, these are people who don't have access to running water. And hand washing at the time, if you think back to the beginning of COVID, that was the main prevention. And so right away we said, we've got to get hand washing stations. We've got to get toilets in. So it's been a really interesting operational experience. Of course, we've done almost nothing by ourselves. We've done everything in lockstep with the county. Some of the things that we have done, we have put millions of dollars towards rental relief and rental assistance. I wish I would have prepped for this better and had known some of these questions. I would have had exact figures for you, but a truly unprecedented amount of funds towards rental assistance. We've maxed that out, and we haven't even been able to help everyone who needed it. We have fed thousands of seniors. So we have a really active senior food program, Hot Meals, where they can drive through or where they can have them delivered. Senior nutrition is definitely a challenge. Nutrition overall, by the way, is a really big challenge. We have set up learning pods, which is effectively with so many children not able to go to school, but often if they have parents who are essential workers and they're going to work, those children need a safe place to go. So we have worked together with the school district and our Parks and Rec department on using a lot of our spaces that are not being used currently and making those accessible to kids. So we have our Parks and Rec staff, and they are able to set up sort of safe stations where kids can come during the day. They can dial into their Zoom calls, get internet. Internet access has been another big one. We certainly have this has really brought forward the digital divide in our country. Yep. And certainly our school district was tackling that from a device perspective, and they had these Wi-Fi pods. My children, my oldest was in RCSD in the spring when shelter in place hit. They actually delayed rolling out online because they knew not everybody had access to these tools. So it was really something to watch our schools go through what they went through. And so we've worked on that as well. Personally, I've taken a strong interest in childcare, myself having been a working mother, and then just having experienced what it is like to, suddenly be working. I also still work. So I still work in technology. I consult doing this role, and then taking care of your kids and trying to educate them. And it's incredibly challenging. And what we're seeing, the data is bearing out, is that it is disproportionately impacting women, and in particular, women of color nationally. Last month, the United States lost 140,000 jobs, almost entirely women. Women are dropping out of the workforce at an exceptional rate. And it's no different here in Redwood City. And so I got together in the spring with a group of childcare advocates and with Councilwoman Amarantz Lee of San Mateo. And we devised the COVID Childcare Relief Fund. And it's been a real adventure. We started by not knowing how much we needed. We were able to secure $2 million of CARES Act funding from the Board of Supervisors. But after we opened up the application process, we found out that there was $4.9 million in need.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty depressing.
Yeah.
It's
a big number.
It's a big number. Yeah, we went out and did private fundraising. Facebook, Google, Chan Zuckerberg added $200,000. San Bruno Community Foundation. Mm-hmm. And then we were able to leverage the private funds, go back to the Board of Supervisors and say, we still have unmet need. Mm-hmm. And I don't think childcare is an infrastructure. It's just like roads. It's how you get people to their jobs. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really proud to say that we have fully funded that need. So we did that. However, it's not done. We've already gotten emails from some of the child cares who receive funds who are like, well, that was great. That was a month's worth of payments. And you have to understand, for child cares and for most small businesses, they are operating at reduced revenues and increased costs, right? They're not making as much as they were. And now they have to have PPE, they have to have cleaning supplies. So it isn't just an incredibly challenging time for them. I've also spent time fundraising for small businesses. So raised about $300,000 for small businesses in Redwood City and North Oaks. Also partnering with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, who has been just a phenomenal partner to Redwood City during this time.
Wow. I mean, it's incredible to hear the work that's happening behind the scenes. And a lot of times we don't find out about the work that you and others like you are doing to make sure that we keep our community safe, that we keep everyone moving. And you pointed out some interesting things, like talking about how childcare is like infrastructure. It's the first time I hear anyone point out like that, but you're 100% right. It is one of the ways in which people can go back to work. And it sounds like even some women, many women out there have 3 full-time jobs, right? It's taking care of their families, doing the work that they need to be doing. I mean, my heart goes out to all those who are really fighting to get through these challenging times. Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you questions about housing, because it seems like a lot of the issues that you mentioned revolve around housing. Mm-hmm. What are some of those things that you can talk about that the city or even the county is tackling for us to face those housing challenges?
Well, okay, so first of all, on homelessness, we were successful in getting through our safe parking program. It's non-trivial, so it's now the largest safe parking program in the county. To do it, we really wanted to do it in a different way, which is we wanted to be the way most safe parking programs worked. And we spent time for a year literally going around to different safe parking programs, interviewing, meeting, everything we could to make this a great program, and meeting with neighbors. We even met with the homeless members of the people who were living in RVs themselves to find out what solutions would work for them. And what we learned was that it wasn't possible to have people stay in these parking lots overnight because it would create a landlord-tenant situation such that if we had to move them on to permanent housing, there were legal, it was really complicated. And so we did a really good thing last year that most people don't know about, which is that we hired a legislative analyst, which sounds super boring. But what it means is that we have somebody in Sacramento advocating for Redwood City. So we put together a policy slate and we said, if laws come up related to this, we want you to tell us so that we can help push for them. And what we were able to do with this analyst is work with Phil Ting's office on getting that law changed. And so because of Redwood City and Mountain View, we partnered with Mountain View. They were also facing very high homelessness numbers. We were able to get that law changed. So our RV homeless population, they stay overnight and 24 hours on those parking lots, which is huge because before they leave at 7 a.m., you've already experienced homelessness and you have to pack up your RV every day, move it onto somebody's street, and then move it back at night. It just seemed like a bad idea. So that was a big win. Nobody really knows about, but now you do. I think we have, we've worked a lot on pushing affordable housing in a lot of developments. So we've just gone through this gatekeeper process, which basically there was so much interest in Redwood City from developers that we said, okay, well, we're in the driver's seat. What do we want? Right. We want affordable housing. We want childcare. We want family-friendly amenities. And that's what we got. And I had run the math when we were doing the meeting, and I looked at our upcoming RHNA allocation, and we can talk a little bit about RHNA in a bit, the regional housing allocation. And I think when we approved those projects to start moving through the process, that was something like, it was like a huge percentage. I want to say over 20% of the entire number for the next 7 years. Wow. And so I think we're really committed to adding affordable housing. The other thing we've done on housing is we've talked a lot about family housing. So if you look at the last decade of Redwood City and what was built in the downtown, so much of it was studios and one bedrooms, which will house a tech worker, but that won't house a family. Right. And developers don't generally build family housing. It's not a common product. And so when I got elected, that was one of the things that was on my platform was like 3 bedrooms. Why are there no 3 bedrooms? And I knew this from my experience of when my husband and I had been out looking for an apartment. And then that's a whole nother story I could tell you at some point. But ultimately, it was just because nobody was asking them to. And so I started asking, then Alicia started asking, and everybody started asking. And now we've really changed it so that we're getting more family housing in Redwood City, which I think is great because it is such a great place to raise a family. And I know, Rudy, you're about to embark on that journey yourself. Yeah. Thank you. So that's some of it. Other things that we're doing are, for example, we have a letter going out in support of, I'm going to mess it up. I want to say it's like AB 16, the bill that would extend the eviction moratorium. So we're supporting that legislation. And so through a combination of policies, working on protections, and then adding to it with housing supply, we're really trying to attack it at all 3 levels. Housing is our #1 priority as a council in our strategic plan. Wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that all these things are happening. And, our families are hurting. Some of these things can be tackled in the immediate. Some of these things, happen over time, especially when it comes to housing. It's not something that could, be constructed overnight. But if we don't set the base now, we don't set the
the systems for us to be able to create more affordable housing, and keeping in mind issues like family housing, right? Like, as you pointed out, we're going to struggle even more down the road.
The thing I'm excited about, I want to say one more thing about housing that I haven't talked about much yet in council, is ownership. If there's one area I feel we haven't gone after yet that I want to go after, it's affordable ownership. Really, affordable housing, you're still renting. To really build that equity and help people build firm roots in a community, they need to own. So I've been starting to research what are ways that we can help people get into ownership. What are ways we can be working with developers to say, hey, let's, instead of those being rentals, let's make them ownership. So I'm excited and looking out for interesting policy ideas and ways that we can make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, my husband and I were on the search not that long ago. We were looking at purchasing, and it's
so hard.
I mean, it costs,
it's so hard.
Just to get a 2-bedroom in Redwood City is over $800,000, a 2-bedroom apartment, and that's we're planning on having a bigger family, and it's just limiting, right? And your down payment is high; it's in the tens of thousands at a minimum, right? That's if you're able to get an FHA loan. But if you go conventional loan, we're talking a lot more money. Mortgage insurance, like all these things add up, and we're talking thousands of dollars a month to be able to own even something affordable. So we got to talk about what that word means. But all right, thank you so much for talking about what's happening at the local level. I'm happy to have you as a champion there. Now I want to pivot just a little bit. We have chaos in Washington at the moment. Sadly, I thought we were headed into some peaceful times, right? Democrats just took the Senate. The Democrats kept the House. President-elect Biden is about to get inaugurated, and you think that this country would be excited that we're moving into this new era.
Yeah.
However, we're facing this situation where we saw an insurrection. We saw people invade our Capitol building. It made me think of all those folks, especially as a Latino, of people I know, friends of mine, saying that they were going to vote for Trump because they didn't want to see this country look like Venezuela or Cuba or Nicaragua. And what I saw is exactly what they claimed they did not want to see. And they see it, now they're witnessing it, and they're silent. And we have, basically, I'm going to say it, domestic terrorists, trying to, stop a duly elected process. I mean, democratic process. So what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? What message do you have for us and Latino community about what's happening?
I mean, first of all, if you've lived through this week, acknowledge that you've just lived through one of the most consequential weeks of the United States of America. I really believe that. I mean, let's recap the week, right? So the week started out with, Trump on the phone with Georgia election officials, asking them to find him 11,000 votes, right? So that right there. Yeah. Effectively, losing the Georgia runoff for his party, and really, really excited about both Warnock and Ossoff. And that on its own was so historic, and how unfortunate that was sort of like headline number 12 this week. Right. But Warnock is only the second African-American statewide official in Georgia, which is, a largely African-American state. John Ossoff, son of immigrants, Jewish American. His wife is a doctor. She's an OBGYN delivering babies. And so just really excited about that team. And then, the next day you have the Senate headed in to certify the election results, Trump giving a speech and inciting a march into the Capitol and violence. Our treasures of our nation were desecrated. It was disrespectful. And there are definitely folks who have concerns. There are reasons to have concerns, I believe, about some of the response by law enforcement. Minimally, why were we so unprepared? Yeah. And it's a very traumatic experience, I think, for everybody. yes, Twitter and Facebook have taken him off, but he still has the nuclear codes. So I definitely would say that the pain everybody is feeling is real. I don't think we're going to be out of this for a while, even after Biden comes into office. And I feel for him and for Kamala Harris. They have their work cut out for them. I am very concerned that with Twitter and Facebook moving Trump off, it is moving everybody into Parler, which is this app for the far right, and that it's going to consolidate that group there and potentially lead to greater harm. They are not holding themselves responsible in the same way, so that could take legislation, right? So we're in uncharted territory. I mean, the last time you could have talked about something like this happening in our nation was in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So it's a totally new game. Constitutional lawyers are probably all brushing off their books. I know there will be proceedings this week in Congress, and we'll see which route that they pursue.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk of impeachment. I want to ask another question on what you're saying. So a lot of people, and I've heard comparing, this riot to the riot of, to the protests of Black Lives Matter movement. I'd like to hear your thoughts on people who think that there is some direct comparison and the difference between what happened in Washington these last couple of days and what happened across the nation as people stood up for social and racial justice.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. This is actually, I think, a great example of bias in action. If we believe the words of the chief in the Capitol Police, they said that they believed this would just be a First Amendment demonstration. So at a minimum, what that tells you was there was a bias towards, simply believing that this group was less threatening than this other group, right? The Black Lives Matters group that this summer was there, and you had the National Guard out. So I think that's a really interesting one to go back and look at. Now, that's if you're just taking it at face value and at word. And I know some of the articles I'm reading are suggesting much more than that. And there is talk of it being planned and more. I think we're going to have to wait for more investigation to bear out exactly what happened. But we can't spend $750 billion on defense and that be how our nation's capital is protected. I mean, I think that really calls into question what we're getting and if we are being protected in that way. So it's hard. I know today is actually, I think today is actually like National, what is it? Sort of Public Service Day or National Policing Day, but it must be incredibly hard for a law enforcement day. It's National Law Enforcement Day, right. So it is getting deeper on this issue that was already on the table. I mean, it's on the table in Redwood City. We just created a commission on policing that'll be both a council commission and a community commission, and I think it is once again bringing that issue to the national forefront. Yeah. And it's got to be discussed. It has to be discussed. People have to have confidence in their government and in their public servants.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my brother.
What's yours?
My brother's he's a police officer. He's the president of the police union of the city in which he serves. Okay. And he's just appalled. He's absolutely appalled at what's happened, and that there is clear evidence that there were police officers who were allowing this to happen, that made way for people to enter the Capitol, and that there was clear bias, right, in how they approached the Black Lives Matter movement versus these group of folks that marched into the Capitol. So he's actually calling out what they call their blue brothers and sisters that are being silent at the moment, knowing that mistakes were made, and that there's a difference in treatment within what happened this past summer and what's happening right now. So I honestly do hope that police officers out there, and if you're watching, listening to us, is like, speak out, right? If you see something wrong, you should be holding your own accountable. I mean, that's how you develop trust from the community, and by calling out something that you know is wrong. So otherwise, then you leave it to assume that, you know, a lot of people assume that they're all the same and all that, and they're not. There are people who actually care about, you know, truly care about the rule of law, and we saw these past couple days as an example of you know, double standards, hypocrisy, and I'd like to see what these investigations turn out. Right, what happened? Was it premeditated? Were there people involved? Just to get a better understanding of what happened.
It almost feels like a movie. And I mean, I don't know if you watched some of the Senate hearings. Well, I wanted to add, of course, condolences to, I'm not sure if it's now 1 or 2 officers that had died. And I just feel that their blood is on our standing president's hands. And that is why I believe he needs to be impeached. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's political and move. No, you must show people that you will enforce your laws. And I think it's absolutely critical. We stayed up and we watched the vote proceedings, and it was powerful. I would say I was, you know, you're in a, like, sort of the Twilight Zone when you're agreeing with Lindsey Graham. I mean, for me personally, but I look at my husband and I'm like, when they make the movie in 2 years, that's going to be like the turning point in like the story of like the insurrection. It's like
and Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
But like,
I was agreeing with her. Like, what?
Like, oh, now absolved. It's like, you created this. You contributed to this.
Yeah.
And now here we are. And I'm seeing, you know, for me, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm from a very red part of the country. I mean, Wisconsin was the state that was decisive for Trump in 2016, which was really hard. And I have friends who had a lot to say about the BLM movement who were absolutely radio silent this week, with nothing to say. And to me, that silence spoke so loud. And we just have a real division problem right now in our country. I look at it. There was a really great article that I started reading on Instagram, and it said, instead of comparing it to BLM, what we should be comparing this to it is all of the other moments of white supremacy in our history, to the lunch counters, to the bus rides. And if you look at the similarities in those moments, it was all about losing some amount of power for the majority, for the white majority. And I believe we're at another moment like that, and that this is a pushback to that change. I do believe that that's a big part of what's happening here.
Yes.
And that's what great is. That is what great is to some of these individuals. That is their version of it.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Giselle, for being here, Vice Mayor. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for talking to us about, you know, the new council locally, the issues that you're working on, that you're tackling, and obviously your thoughts on what's happened past week in Washington. We really appreciate your time, you know, being here with Ruth and I. Really, thank you for always being there when we ask, when we call, and you always say yes. So
for you too, anything.
Thank you.
I hope you're sleeping well, and we're gonna get through this together.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We look forward to speaking to you again, and we look forward to the time when we can actually see you in person again.
I will have a hug for each of you. All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Giselle. Connie, that was es una conversación, otra, ¿no? Conversación muy interesante.
Wow. Sí,
y la
muy
verdad que es una servidora, ¿no? de nuestra ciudad increíble. Qué bueno que tenemos esa pasión y ese fuego de una persona, una madre joven, con experiencia, que de verdad está haciendo su trabajo para mejorar las cosas de la comunidad latina, ¿no? Ella sí es una aliada de nosotros y orgulloso que está aquí.
Sí, yo también igual me siento muy orgullosa de poder trabajar con ella y realmente, como dije, cuando le hablo, cuando le pregunto algo, siempre siempre me contesta o me manda un email. Muy, me gusta pues cómo puedo trabajar con ella y es una de las personas que, como dices, tiene energía y trabaja en diferentes temas, no solamente es una concejal que trabaja en ciertos temas, sino que en diferentes temas y no solamente en Redwood City, sino por toda el área de la bahía. O sea, puede trabajar con diferentes personas por toda el área de la bahía. Entonces estoy muy orgullosa de poder tenerla aquí y que nos haya platicado acerca de todo lo que está trabajando.
Sí, definitivamente.
Sí.
A mí me gustó mucho escuchar sobre el trabajo que está haciendo en la comunidad en cuanto a las viviendas, ¿no? Hablando de las personas que no tienen techo en este momento y esos que están en hogares móviles, que no están sin agua y cómo trabajaron para buscar darles, para poder lavarse las manos, ¿no?
Pues es que viviendas es un problema, algo que nos afecta pues a nosotros todos, a la comunidad. Necesitamos un lugar donde vivir, ¿verdad? Y como estábamos platicando esto de COVID, nos está afectando la comunidad latina precisamente porque vivimos juntos, vivimos con familia, no podemos, tal vez no tenemos los recursos para poder vivir nosotros en otro apartamento o tenemos que vivir juntos. Entonces, necesitamos seguir trabajando nosotros con nuestros aliados, con las personas y seguir tratando de avanzar para que hagan más, para que hagamos la diferencia y que sigan construyendo viviendas accesibles, propiedades que se puedan comprar, como ella estaba discutiendo, quiere que hagan más, que se construyan más propiedades que realmente que sean para dueños, no nomás para rentar, sino ownership, ¿verdad?
Así es. Y nos estaba comentando, ¿no? Que ahorita en Redwood City la mayoría de las propuestas de desarrollos nuevos de viviendas eran estudios, ¿no? Apartamentos de una habitación, 2 habitaciones, y ya está luchando para que veamos más opciones con 3 habitaciones.
Tres
para poder construir
habitaciones.
familia. Y más las familias nuestras, ¿no? Que a veces son multigeneracionales. Tenemos abuela y abuelo, los papás, los hijos, nietos viviendo bajo el mismo techo y como dijiste, se hace difícil bajo una pandemia mantener a toda la familia segura.
Saludable, sí, entonces sí. Pero muy interesante.
Sí, y el cuidado de niños también, ¿verdad? Ella mencionó eso, que cuántas mamás han tenido que dejar sus trabajos porque tienen que cuidar a sus niños, ser profesoras, no estar al lado de ellos en la computadora, cuando están en Zoom haciendo clase. Es muy difícil. Le mencionó que más de 140,000 personas perdieron su trabajo el mes pasado y la mayoría eran mujeres. Y la verdad que a mí me da mucha tristeza porque en este país hemos visto que la mujer ha avanzado muchísimo sobre las últimas décadas en cuanto regresando al trabajo. Ya la idea de que papá trabaja y mamá en casa, eso ha cambiado mucho. Y la verdad que tener 2 ingresos en este tiempo es muy importante. Entonces, así que una mamá dejando el trabajo, estamos hablando de miles de dólares que pierden al año que pueden ayudar para proveer para su familia.
Así es, Rudy. Entonces tenemos que seguir trabajando nosotros también como en comunidad para ver qué podemos ayudar y qué recursos podemos traer a la comunidad y seguirles platicando y seguirles animando a que usen su mascarilla durante este tiempo de la pandemia, que se vayan a hacer sus exámenes de COVID y que se mantengan pues seguros y tengan mucho cuidado con todo eso, ¿verdad?
Sí,
Entonces,
sí, vemos cuando venga esa vacuna, les pedimos que por favor tomen en consideración tomar la vacuna si tienen la oportunidad. Es para la protección no solo de ustedes, sino la protección de sus familiares, sus amistades y la comunidad alrededor para ya poner un fin a la pandemia y poder regresar a lo que fue normal, ¿no? Y volver a abrir las empresas y que la economía regrese, que los niños regresen a clase, que podamos regresar al trabajo y que podamos seguir adelante, ¿no? Y poner todo esto en el pasado. Connie, un gusto siempre estar aquí con vos hablando sobre estos temas difíciles e importantes para nuestra comunidad.
Así es, Rudy, igualmente me da mucho gusto platicar contigo. Hasta luego, nos vemos para la próxima. Que tengas una muy bonita noche. Nos vemos luego. Adiós.